Hey, it's Lori, and I'm here today with my March reading wrap up. So, I just thought I'd try it out this time. I'm going to start with a little bit of statistics, and then I'm going to do my books instead of in order of how I read them by rating. So, to start off, I read 10 and a half books in March. Um, I just finished the very end of one, and it's now officially April, but I'm going to count it for this one because it's part of a series. Of those books, four of them were sci fi or fantasy. One of those fantasies was YA. And then I had two other junior fiction YA books. One was historical fiction, and one I'm classifying as other because I really have no idea what to put it under. I read two memoirs, two nonfiction, and one literary fiction book. So, total for all of that got a little confusing because I did want to put in the YA junior fiction kind of categorization, but that double counted a little bit. So that is what I read this month. So the first book I want to talk about is my 3-star book this month, and this was a library book. This was Children of Blood and Bone. I gave this book 3 stars. I had a hard time getting into the book. It was multiple perspective, and it had 3 different perspectives in it, and I didn't really like 2 of the 3 perspectives very much. This is a fantasy set in Africa with magical powers, and the magic has been taken away, and so the 3 characters end up on a quest. A couple of them are trying to bring back magic, and one of them is trying to stop them from bringing back magic. And then they intersect quite a bit. I thought it was an interesting book, and there were parts that I really enjoyed the writing of. The pacing was difficult. Sometimes it seemed like things would go very, very quickly, and then all of a sudden we'd slow down a whole lot. So, but overall, it was a pretty fast paced, moving book. It just wasn't really one that I greatly connected to. Um, it is one that Charlotte read before me, and she was okay with it, but didn't think it was great either. I don't know if I would bother to go on and read the second book in the series when it comes out. Moving on to my 4-star books, I had 4 of them. So I'm going to start with the kind of junior fiction YA historical fiction. That book is The Book Thief. My husband read this first, and then Eva read it, and then Charlotte read it, and now I've read it. And the girls and I have filmed a book discussion on this, so I'm not going to go into great detail here. I did enjoy this book, but not enough for me to give it 5 stars. Generally speaking, if I give a book 5 stars, it means I would be willing and ready to read it again, and I wasn't quite there with this one. Good story, but not quite a 5-star for me. Another junior fiction book that we read this month, this was a family read aloud, was Ember Rising by S.D. Smith. I did talk about this in one of my read aloud recommendations videos. The Green Ember series is a great modern series. It has rabbits, and they have swords, like they're it's been a really long day of school, and my brain is no longer functioning. They're anthropomorphized rabbits, and they have a battle against the raptors, the birds of prey. So this is the 3rd book in the series, but it is not the final book in the series. I gave this one 4 stars. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the first 2 books in the series. This is the one where everybody's kind of split up and doing different things, so it's hopping back and forth from different perspectives. So I expect I will like the final book more. I'm not sure if the 4th is going to be the final book or not. So This one was a good solid 4-star read. My other two 4-star reads were kind of in the nonfiction category. The first of those was The Great Train Robbery by Michael Crichton. So this is an old book. This edition came out in 1974, which is multiple years before I was born. So, but this was really fascinating. I really had no idea what to expect from this. I honestly had no idea it wasn't really fiction. I'm not really sure how you categorize this because it's a true story, but it's not really historical fiction. Yeah, I'm going to have to put it in nonfiction. Okay, I'm going to revise my nonfiction and put this kind of more under historical fiction. I really don't know how to categorize this. So this is about a train robbery that happened in 1855, and it relies heavily upon the court testimony and so forth. It's all throughout the narrative, but I'm sure parts of it had to be somewhat fictionalized to turn it into more of a narrative. So this one walks that line of nonfiction, historical fiction a little bit because it is based on a true event. This one was very interesting. There were parts that were a little bit on the crude side. I would not recommend this to my kids as of yet because some of the ways that they had to get a bunch of different keys for the safes for this robbery. And some of them were gotten during kind of difficult situations that were just distasteful. So there's some distasteful stuff in here. But it was fascinating to kind of get inside the minds of these criminals. It kind of goes against the whole theory that criminals generally commit crimes because they are in need. The kind of mastermind behind this said he did it because he wanted the money. So I don't know. This one was interesting. I gave it 4 stars. Definitely it was better than a 3-star book for me, but this was probably the lowest of my 4-star books this month. The last of my 4-star books this month was The Power of Silence by Robert Cardinal. This was a book I've been reading for quite a while. This is part of my Catholic 2019 challenge. And it's all about the importance of silence in our relationship with God. I went back and forth. I think I first rated it 4 stars and then I upped it to 5 stars and then I dropped it back down to 4 stars. So this is a good solid 4.5 stars, I guess. It has so much great stuff in here that just tells you all about how important silence is and gives some encouragement for introducing more silence into your life. But it also kind of felt like 2 different books because they were kind of 2 distinct portions of this book. The first part was numbered paragraphs, and it did answer some questions, but it was kind of in a numbered paragraph format. And then the second part was more of an interview format where there's a person asking questions and Cardinal Seurat and another priest were answering the questions, so they'd go back and forth. So it was just a little disjointed in that sense, and I think I might have done better with it had I had a paper copy instead of a Kindle copy. I find sometimes it difficult for longer books for me to read them on Kindle because you can't flip back and forth. So I mean, as easily. So my main critiques of this were that it felt disjointed, but I don't know if it would have felt that way if I had been more easily able to flip back and forth. So this one was the best of my 4-star books this month. Moving into my 5-star books, I'm going to start with the last 2 I finished. One of them I just finished today, so technically it's in my Goodreads as an April book finish, but I'm just going to talk about it now. These are some of my favorite books to reread. It is the Wizard and Rhyme series. So I finished it out this month plus a day or two. So the Crusading Wizard is book 7, and the Feline Wizard is book 8. So, as I explained in last month's wrap up, these generally follow a character who came from our modern world about in the 80s, because these are not new books by any means. So he's 1980s-ish character. And he is whisked away to an alternative universe where poetry is magic. So he becomes a wizard. And he's always fighting evil. So he's just a very fun character. What I do really appreciate about these books that I see not done a whole lot in fantasy and sci-fi type books is that faith is explored. So the world he is whisked into is a deeply religious world. So in the Crusading Wizard, he has to go to Jerusalem, and he's teaming up. He is a Christian and a Catholic, to be more precise, and he is teaming up with Muslims to keep the barbarian hordes out of Jerusalem. So there's a new character introduced in this book who is a young woman who, for a certain reason, is able to change into a cat. And so she goes on this adventure, finds out who she truly is. And then this next book, The Feline Wizard, is about this girl who can turn into a cat. Her name is Balkis, and she is kidnapped. And so the main character, Matthew, has to go try to find her, but she basically finds her way back with the help of a companion. These are very fun novels. I mean, there's nothing super deep about them, but I really enjoy rereading them over and over again. There's dragons, there's magic, there's all sorts of craziness, like giant ants in this one. Yeah, and I like the fact that they explore faith. So these were probably the least meaningful of my 5-star reads, but I still really enjoyed them. My next 5-star book was actually an audiobook, and this is a book I listened to in the car with the girls as we were traveling around, and this one may have taken us January, February, and March. I'm not sure when we finished the first book in this series. So the series is the James Herriot books. So we finished All Things Bright and Beautiful. We finished okay, this is the James Herriot novel All Things Bright and Beautiful, and we finished this one. I really enjoy the audiobooks of these. They are narrated by Christopher Timothy, I believe. Yes, Christopher Timothy. And he does a wonderful job. I guess that he played the character of James Herriot in a TV show once upon a time. I know next to nothing about the TV show. I'm not a huge TV person, so I don't know if it was a good show or not, but he narrates these books so hilariously. In the first book, the funniest character was Tristan, the brother of James Herriot's employer. And in this one, it was this surgeon for small animals. I cannot think of his name right now, which is a bummer. He was just hilarious, though, so every time James Herriot had to take an animal to be operated upon by this specialty surgeon for small animals, he ended up being just like drunk and smelly in front of this guy's gorgeous wife. So just every time that character came up, I knew we were in for a ride. The next book that got 5 stars this month from me is another memoir, and this one is Night's Bright Darkness, a modern conversion story by Sally Reed. This is another book for my Catholic 2019 challenge, and I just loved this memoir. Sally Reed was an atheist, and she converted to Catholicism, and I was an atheist that converted to Catholicism, so that's some of my favorite conversion stories to read, because I relate to them very much. But Sally Reed is also a poet, and so all of her writing is just intensely beautiful. I don't think I took more than a week to read this book. Just so compelling of writing, and her story is very interesting. She's British. She married an Italian man, so a lot of her conversion happened when they were living outside of Rome. And we just recently had a trip to Rome. We went to Rome in December, and it was amazing. So it was kind of cool to have that setting because I have much better um, visual. It has been a day. I have much better visualization. I can visualize Rome a lot better now than I could before we went. So I was very glad to have read this one after we got back. My final two 5-star books were both library books, and I had to return them, so I don't have them with me. The first was The Eye of the World, which is the first book in the Wheel of Time series. I never thought I would read these books. I remember when my husband read them a very long time ago, asking him what they were about or what happened. He was like, not much, because there's just so much. I mean, there's stuff that happens, but there's just so much traveling. It's very hard to describe what happens. So I really appreciated The Eye of the World. I like how it kind of started out as like a traveling tale, and then at a certain point the characters are split. And so we've got 3 different sets of the characters, and they're trying to meet back up, but they have their own challenges that they go throughout that. I really liked Rand and Perrin, probably my 2 favorite characters. Matt annoyed me a little bit. And then I still don't know how I feel about some of the female characters. So yeah, I'm not sure yet. I think I like them, but that could change. So I'm going to continue on in the series. I've started just the very little bit of the next book. I don't think I've even made it through the prologue yet. I tried starting the second book as an audiobook. I do not like the audiobooks of this. The narrators are not my thing. I am extremely picky about narrators. So if I don't connect to a narrator, it's like, nope, that's not going to happen. So I had to get my hands on a paper copy. And then I was in the middle of finishing a bunch of stuff, so I haven't gotten any further than I listened to in the audiobook, which was maybe 20 minutes, maybe. I don't know. So I'm really enjoying the Wheel of Time series so far, and I look forward to continuing on with it. The final 5-star book was probably my favorite book of the month of March, and it was the first book I read, and that was Virgil Wander by Leif Enger. I read Peace Like a River last year, and I really enjoyed it. And then I saw that Virgil Wander was out, and so I grabbed it at the library, and I liked it even more. So the story of Virgil Wander follows Virgil Wander, and Virgil is just a fun character. So he had a traumatic brain injury caused by a car accident when he accidentally drove off into the ocean, and a bystander pulled him out of his sinking car. So he has no car. He's having trouble with his memories. He lives alone and is single. But the thing that just enchanted me was where he lives, because Virgil Wander owns a small town theater. And so he lives above the movie theater. And the movie theater is an old school movie theater with real projection. Now, a long, long time ago, when Eva was just a baby, my husband and I worked part-time at our local movie theater back before they went digital. So I have kind of a weird love of actually projected movies. Now it's the skill needed is that you can press play. But, the movie every week had to be put together and had to be taken apart, and that involved some actual knowledge and skill. So I did learn how to do both. I never had to put the movie together. There was another guy who liked to do that, because you have to watch through the movie after you put it together to make sure you didn't get a reel in backwards or anything, because that would be terrible. But I did pretty regularly for a while take apart the movies, so I'd have to cut them back apart at the end and get them into their reels to move on to the next location. So the movie theater thing was just great. Now, Leif Enger not only wrote a great character in Virgil, he's got this whole cast of just crazy characters around him. So there is a Scandinavian guy who comes to town trying to find out about his son that he didn't know existed. His son disappeared a number of years ago and is presumed dead in a crash. There's like this eccentric movie actor guy that kind of comes and goes from the town, and he may be really evil. We're not really sure. There's this family with this young boy where a tragedy strikes, and the young boy is convinced that if he can just catch this fish, everything will be fine. There's another married couple who've been separated. There's just all this drama, and it's set in a small town. I never really thought I'd be a small town person until I married into a small town family and moved out to a small town. So small towns are interesting, but this one I just love because it's not a thriving small town. It's kind of a dying small town. And so the local festival, small towns love having little festivals and such, and they're like always like way pro the town and whatever, and that's what this is supposed to be. But in the end, somebody pitches the idea of calling it Hard Luck Days, and they just decide to latch onto that, and then everything just kind of goes down on Hard Luck Days during Hard Luck Days. So that's when like all the real super craziness happens in this novel. So I highly recommend this one. I just love Virgil. I loved his town. I loved all the people in the town. I'm still not really sure. There's always kind of a almost mystical, mysterious thing in his writing. At least there was with Peace Like a River, and now Virgil Wander. I have one more of his books to read, so I'm guessing it'll be in there, something similar, but where you're like, what does that mean, that thing that happened? And so yeah, there's just a certain point where it's like, so this happened and this person disappeared. Is this related? Is this supposed to be a connection I'm making? So Virgil Wander was my favorite book of the month of March. I apparently just rambled on and on and on, so I'm going to have to do some serious editing on this one. Thanks so much for watching. Please let me know below if you've read one of these books, or if you have a great book suggestion for me based on anything I've said here. I'd love to hear what you think. Feel free to subscribe if you're interested in seeing more wrap-ups from me and my girls, along with all sorts of other fun book stuff. And thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day. Bye.